You've been lied to about frugality, about discipline, about what it really means to be good with money. Because sometimes what you call financial intelligence is just your childhood fears wearing a suit and tie. What if your discipline isn't wisdom, but a symptom? What if your ability to say no all the time is less about power and more about past pain? Maybe you pride yourself on not wasting money. You calculate every purchase. You never indulge. People admire you. They say you're responsible, mature. But inside, there's a whisper, a subtle hum of fear. What if I never escape this? What if all this control still leaves me stuck? You feel like a prisoner with the keys in your hand, locked in by your own beliefs. And that prison, it's self-built, reinforced with invisible bars of shame and scarcity. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're just decorating your cell. According to behavioral economist Senthil Mullainathan, the brain under chronic scarcity doesn't plan. It panics. It becomes narrow, short-sighted, reactive. That's not strategy. That's survival. If you were raised hearing, money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that, then frugality isn't a choice. It's a scar. It's your nervous system trying to protect you from the past. It's not just budgeting. It's bracing. But what does it mean to live in a state of chronic bracing? Imagine a soldier in a war zone. Even when the bullets stop flying, his body is still tense, his breath shallow, his mind scanning for danger. This is what many of us live like financially. Always alert, always preparing for the next crisis, never relaxing into abundance. This tension creates the illusion of control. You're not thriving, you're bracing, you're not planning, you're panicking in slow motion. And over time, this chronic state of alertness becomes your identity. You start to think this is who you are, the careful one, the planner, the one who never messes up. But that's not identity. That's injury. The tragedy is, the more disciplined you become, the more you tighten the noose. You master the art of limitation, but forget the science of creation. Poor people often confuse restraint with power. They celebrate deprivation as virtue. But those with true wealth, they know the game is not about minimizing risk, but optimizing return. They don't ask, what can I cut? They ask, what can I build? Because you don't get rich by being careful. You get rich by being clear. And clarity leads to bold, conscious risk, not compulsive control. So ask yourself, if I gave you $1,000 today, would you invest it or save it? Would you envision it multiplying or fear it disappearing? Would your mind go to possibility or protection? That answer will reveal whether your financial discipline is rooted in strategy or trauma. You work, you grind, you fill your calendar, you feel productive, but deep down, nothing moves. Because the truth is, busyness isn't the opposite of laziness, it's the mask of it. We stay busy to avoid silence, to avoid depth, to avoid facing the terrifying truth that maybe we don't know what we're doing. Maybe we're scared to stop, because if we stop, we might have to feel. We might have to confront the hollowness beneath all that hustle. Feeling is dangerous in a world that worships performance, so we numb. With noise, with to-do lists, with another YouTube video on productivity. Because if you're busy, at least you're not broken, right? We confuse motion with meaning. Psychologists call it the effort heuristic. We think more effort means more value. But life doesn't reward sweat. It rewards clarity. It rewards leverage. Imagine a man on a stationary bike. He pedals hard. He's drenched in sweat, muscles shaking, heart racing. He looks around and realizes he's in the exact same spot. That's the tragedy of modern ambition, movement without meaning. And here's the trap. The world rewards the illusion. The man on the bike gets praise. He looks dedicated. He looks disciplined. But inside, he's exhausted, lost, drenched in invisible despair. Because somewhere deep down, he knows all this effort isn't building anything real. Look at your last week. How much of your energy built something lasting? Map your distractions. Name your false urgencies. Eliminate the noise. Replace it with what matters: silence, direction, execution. Don't look busy. Be strategic. You manage your budget. You've got spreadsheets, apps, plans. You feel competent. But here's the paradox. The more obsessed you are with managing scarcity, the more you reinforce it. You become a micromanager of survival instead of a designer of wealth. What if you spent less time managing limits and more time creating leverage? Leverage, that sacred word. Naval Ravikant says it's the real game, using code, capital, people, systems that work while you sleep. But leverage requires letting go. It requires trust. It requires risk. And risk terrifies the ego. Risk exposes our stories. It shines light on the places where we still believe we're not enough. Risk demands that we trade control for creativity, that we move from perfectionism to experimentation, that we bet on ourselves with no guarantees. Carl Jung would call this a shadow virtue, the ego pretending it's moral while actually avoiding transformation. We hide behind frugality. We call it wisdom, but really, it's fear in disguise. The child in us still believes that thriving is dangerous, that abundance is unsafe. Shift your question from how do I control more to how do I multiply what I already know? Automate what's repeatable. Delegate what drains you. Invest in tools that scale. Competence manages. Vision expands. But vision demands discomfort. Comfort is the poor man's god. A soft couch, a predictable weekend, a familiar job, a known pain. But Nietzsche warned us, the will to power, our drive to grow, evolve, transcend, dies in comfort. True strength doesn't come from safety, it comes from expansion. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you're voting against your future self. You're trading purpose for peace. But peace without power is just sedation. So every week, do one thing that confronts your edge. Cold showers, difficult conversations, financial risks, mental stillness, not for punishment, but for potency. Growth doesn't feel good, it feels necessary. Expansion always involves discomfort, not because you're weak, but because you're being remade. You've read all the books, listened to the podcasts, quoted all the thinkers, and yet your bank account doesn't reflect your brilliance. Why? Because knowledge that stays in the mind becomes a cage. Schopenhauer warned us, sterile knowledge is ego theater. It flatters but doesn't transform. You think you're growing, but you're just performing intelligence. You're not building wealth. You're curating it intellectually. So convert every idea into a move. Make it real. Don't just journal. Launch. Don't just highlight. Act. Wisdom lives in the body, in your decisions, in your results. Until an idea moves through your fingers into the world, it is just an echo. You crave recognition. You want people to see your effort, to admire your grind. But admiration doesn't pay. Leverage does. Robert Greene teaches, symbolic status is loud. Real status is silent. You can post your struggle or build your asset. One gets applause, the other gets freedom. Pick one thing, a product, a channel, a skill. Build it in the dark. No updates, no validation, just progress. Let silence protect your momentum. Let your work grow in shadow until it's too powerful to ignore. You've changed jobs, switched careers, moved cities, again and again. But reinvention isn't always growth. Sometimes it's just spiritual escapism. Viktor Frankl said, "Freedom without responsibility becomes a void, a trap, a nihilistic dance with novelty." You're not becoming someone new. You're avoiding becoming someone whole. Choose one path. No new ideas, no pivots, no exits. Just depth. For 90 days. Watch what happens when your energy stops scattering and starts compounding. Stop searching for the next thing. Start making the current thing undeniable. So ask yourself, beneath all your control, your frugality, your hard work, are you building freedom or just rehearsing fear? Are you chasing wealth or protecting wounds? Is your financial intelligence just trauma that learned to wear a tie? If this stirred something in you, you already know what to do. Silence the noise. Confront the fear. Build in the dark. And when the results speak, let them roar.